We're gonna talk about what I learned when I went to church last week. We was talking about Genesis, the book of Genesis, and how God choosing the Garden of Eden to be the Garden of Eden, and why He would do that. Location and geography is what He was talking about. And so when we're looking at the Garden of Eden, He was describing how Eden, we thought it was just a garden. But Eden could have been like, say, like El Paso is a city and then Texas is a state, like that. You know what I mean? So the Garden of Eden wasn't just a small little garden. When you think about when God says that He wanted man and his children to sustain themselves, He put them in the middle of everything that can sustain them: water, food, every resource that He needed. And He said, your main job is to maintain the growth of this garden, because if you don't maintain it, of course, you could lose crops, the food, and all that kind of stuff because of overgrowth. You have to keep everything controlled so that way you can maintain your food source, the water, and everything else. And also it shows that you're staying busy and you're staying productive as well, not slothing. So when we see the Garden of Eden and all the water, what we're seeing is that God chose a garden in the middle of the desert. Think about back in the beginning without all the houses and all that. We're thinking about just Adam and Eve. You're in the middle of an oasis in the middle of the desert. So He says, this is what I want for my children, that they have everything that I've given to them, and the only time that they don't have what they need is when they wander off. Where you would have to wander off for a long time until you pray hard enough for God to give you or lead you up to a certain spot. So we look at that now and the way it is today. Do we have a garden the way that God would have intended? Are taxpaying money being used on water that is non-residential to water fruits? Or is it just like government ranch buildings that they're using to pay the tax water to get that so that way they could sell it in the stores? Because honestly, if our tax-paying money is paying for the water that goes to these plants, why does every park and school have non-fruit bearing trees? You know why? Because that school is non-fruit bearing. That park, that city, that state is non-fruit bearing. You think that's God-fearing? You think that's God-loving? You need to think about what's God-loving, God-fearing. And by trying to make money, God says there's only two masters, either God or money. And when you're thinking about money on what God said was a resource for His people, that ain't God-fearing. That's money-loving. So you got to look at your city, look at your state of what it is, do analysis, and find out how much do you need to change to make it God-loving and God-fearing.